We are saving lives. We little, but we Talawa. We are small, but we are strong, fearless, and mighty. We are saving lives. We little, but we talawa. We are small, but we are strong, fearless, and mighty. We are saving lives. We little, but we talawa. We are small, but we are strong, fearless, and mighty. are saving lives. We little, but we Talawa. We are small, but we are strong, fearless, and mighty.
Indeed. This is so true, huh? Little, but we Tanawa. But we're strong and we're mighty. Yes, Jamaicans, yes. I know I'm a Jamaican. I know. But I'm so proud. I've watched hundreds of Jamaicans this week, thousands of supporters, friends of Jamaica. Appreciate this is a time of great need. I want to say straight away, thank you to you all. Thank you to you all. I am so proud to be a Jamaican. Yes. This is the Motivator Show. This is where we translate our words into action and where success is ours for the taking. Yes. Oh, I'm feeling so good. I'm feeling so good. These are times when you have faith in humanity. And that greed and hubris, selfishness and self-centeredness is not ruling the earth. It's when compassion and empathy is allowed to reign. This is where you see the best of humanity. I want to appreciate all of you who have seen the tragedy that has befallen Jamaica. I should also add Haiti as well, because it was also impacted and part of Cuba, but most certainly Haiti. I want to appreciate you all, and we're all in this together. Mhm. This is not a slogan. We are all in this together. Global warming is a fact. This is not alternative facts. Global warming is a fact. The earth is warming. Our weather patterns will change. Storms will become more intense. So Jamaica was hit by the most powerful storm in our recorded history. United States is now being hit by an incredibly powerful storm. And this will happen year in and year out until the message is clear to us all. We must take care of our planet. We're all responsible, not just the capitalist and the greedy what's nots, yeah? We're all responsible because we've got to say no. We must say no for our children's sake. We must say no. We will recycle. We will use energy that is sustainable energy sources. And we will take care of all the other life forms that are an integral part of our planet. I'm immensely proud of you all who've heard the messages, understood the cry for help by people who are, in this case, not responsible for the horrors that befall Jamaica. Indeed, for the horrors that befall Haiti. Thank you. And later on, in approximately 35 minutes, you're going to hear some powerful testimonies from the elected officials in Jamaica. Powerful testimonies. Powerful testimonies. Okay. But what you're also going to hear are accounts of courage, strength, and resilience. Okay. Courage, strength, and resilience. Common sense, yeah, common sense is being applied. I'm immensely proud to be a Jamaican. Immensely proud. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm so fired up. I've got to tell you, I am so fired up. I'm so fired up. But it's important to state this, though. In 2 successive years, record-breaking hurricanes have hit the Caribbean. Yep, because of its particular location, relation to the Atlantic, and so on. Yeah, when the Atlantic warms up, it creates those storms, and those storms goes over the Caribbean Sea. Oh yeah, yeah. Mhm. But the biggest polluter of them all, yes, sorry, I have to say to you Americans, are the Americans. Yep, yep, and have been the Americans for so long. More recently, of course, China has caught up, but we'll get to that later. But at least the Chinese, I note, are taking this issue seriously and are investing tens of billions of yuans, I believe that is a currency, in sustainable energy sources. And what I see from the current leadership in the US is a denial. It's a denial. The US has opted out of the climate change consortia, COP, opted out of it, and pretending it is not real, despite the tens of billions of dollars of damage storms increasingly are befalling that country. Ridiculous, ridiculous. I know the Americans at some point will wake up and smell the coffee, as the saying goes. But I say again, I'm immensely proud of humanity. Mhm. I was getting a little jaded at times, but I've encountered so many people. Well, not Jamaicans, I might add. They're not Jamaicans, but have understood it's time for humanity to rally around those in greatest needs. Could you also do the same for the people of Sudan, I might add? Should also do the same for them. Well, I'm immensely proud to be a Jamaican. I'm immensely proud, of course, to be a human being, to be amongst such good and wonderful people. Thank you. Thank you. And for those of you who are wondering and having whether or not there is hope for humanity, I'm assuring you there is hope. You are the change makers. The decision begins with you, the individual, and it cascades out to your families, your loved ones, cascades out to your friends and to your wider networks. It cascades out to your wider cities and towns, and of course, to your countries, your nations. It begins with the individual. Oh, yes, I'm fired up. I am truly fired up. I am not in despair. You should not be in despair. And I agree. Some of the pictures, some of the videos we have seen out of Jamaica, and some you may have seen in the intro, are depressing. There's no doubt. They are horrifying. Yeah. They are horrifying. I get it. As my guest at my last podcast, Lee Jasper, what he was very clear about, we must take care of our collective mental health. We don't traumatize ourselves unnecessarily so. So I want to urge many of you who are particularly sensitive, do not gorge on these videos, do not gorge on those pictures. You must protect your mental, indeed, your spiritual health. And together we will rally around you, because we are but one people, one family, one human family. Many tribes, that's true. That's true, You might call yourself whatever, might call yourself English. Yeah, it's a tribe, yeah? You might call yourself Russian. Yeah, it's a tribe. You might call yourself Chinese. Yeah, it's a tribe. Yeah, many tribes. But we're one people. The motto of Jamaica is out of many, one people. We are one people. And in doing so, we are our brothers and sisters keepers. Yeah? We are our brothers and sisters keepers. We don't have to look exactly the same. It's different skin tone, tall, short. Yeah? We could be just slightly different. But we remain one family, one human family. And we must use that as the source of our strengths, because in unity is strength. There you are. There you are. But I've got a lot to get through before now and the main event, okay, which you'll come to in 30 minutes' time. As you know, in this part of the podcast, this is very much a podcast concerned with providing good quality information, empowering information that enables you to make good decisions, information that gives an affirmation that you are worthy. You are worthy. That's the purpose of these podcasts. And in doing so, you are motivated, therefore, to take actions to improve yourselves, your families, your communities, and your wider networks. That is the human condition. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. That is the human condition. So we're here to just to give you a little help. Yeah, get you a little help. Okay, just a little help. So I want to acknowledge my guest of last podcast, Lee Jasper, remarkable human being. The meeting went ahead on Thursday, and he had managed in a few days to organise that the High Commission here in Britain attend the meeting. The local MPs attend the meeting. Mhm. Big sponsors attended the meeting. And indeed, the community, indeed, I was present at the meeting. And this was not a talking shop. It was how we come together, work together with common aim and common purpose. You've heard those words here many times, haven't you? Common aim and common purpose. And following on from that meeting, there were other meetings now have been held with people from different sectors and parts of Britain and part of Europe coming together in common aim and common purpose. How to resolve, mitigate the catastrophe that has befallen Jamaica. And I hope it will extend to Haiti as well. Immensely proud of you, Lee Jasper. Well done. Well done. Oh, yeah. And let me give him a long clap. Here we go. Yeah. Yeah. Well done. Well done. Well done. Well done. Well done. Well done. I just needed to get that one out because it's fantastic. I like doers, you know. I come across many talkers, you know. I come across many who love to criticize the smallest item, yeah. I like doers, people just totally committed. Oh yeah, not a problem. My doors are open to you at any time, Lee, whenever you need me, whenever it's needed. Well done, well done. And we will provide at our next podcast a further outcome following that meeting, the emergency meeting to consider the impact of Hurricane Melissa on Jamaica. Well done, well done. I know that there have been other meetings. There have been other meetings, and there was a meeting of the High Commission here, which had a certain amount of success. It's possible that the concerns about Melissa wasn't fully appreciated by the High Commission, but it is well. The High Commissioner attended the meeting on Thursday. Okay, their meeting on Tuesday. It was somewhat muted, but meeting on Thursday, I believe the High Commissioner was able to speak well on the arrangements to resolve the issues around Melissa. Okay, there you are. I'm not going to criticize the High Commissioner. He's an honest person and means well, and I trust if we give him encouragement, he will continue to excel. There you are, sir. There you are. But nevertheless, the issues are serious, and it has reminded us all that we have a collective responsibility. That's what I would ensure it's understood. We have a collective responsibility. So well done to Lee, and well done to the hundreds of you who responded to that call. Well done, well done, well done. But I also now want, if you permit me, just spend just 2 more minutes, and I've spent slightly longer than my usual earlier intro, is really to remind us of my 2 other of my earlier transmissions, and I think this is quite important. And I know that on this occasion we have extended my usual continuation of a theme, but if it's a particular theme, you can appreciate somewhat some personal impact. Okay. I want to remember, and this is slightly different. I want to remember Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, that prisoner of conscience in Nigeria. I want to remember him. He's now battling, despite the fact he was illegally kidnapped from Kenya and taken to Nigeria. Yeah. He's now defending himself in court against a curious justice system, if I may say so. Okay. I look forward to members of the Indigenous People Biafra organization back here I've been monitoring. I know we've been a little distracted, but we need to get back to this issue because Nigeria is an incredibly important country to all African peoples, whether you've been in the Caribbean, in Europe, or the Americas, or anywhere else. Nigeria is incredibly important. And we can bring peace to Nigeria. We can bring prosperity to all Nigerians, indeed to Africa. It is a critical issue we must resolve. We must find peace. You must find peace. I've seen Britons find peace when faced with the greatest adversity. I'm reminded of Northern Ireland here, and I recall the IRA or Sinn Féin being vicious organisations against the British government because they want independence. But they found peace with them. I'm reminded of the efforts of the Scottish National Party. Was not quite so violent as the Northern Irish, but most certainly, a party intent on independence. Britain found peace with them and gave them the opportunity to demonstrate that independence was supported by all people of Scotland. It failed on this occasion, but it was a peaceful process. I'm aware here in Britain of the independence movement in Wales. There is no need for violence. There's been no need for violence against them either. I believe Nigeria, the government of Nigeria, can achieve the same. This is no criticism of you, sirs or ma'ams. There is no criticism. We all need peace in Nigeria so that we can create prosperity for all Nigerians, for all Africans, both home and abroad. We will return to the issue of Nnamdi Kanu. We will return to that. All righty. I know that one was an important one. I have been monitoring, and there are issues that I won't discuss today, but in the future podcast I will. Okay. I pause there. I just want that to sink in. I'll now move to the next phase of this podcast, which of course are the all-important lifestyle messages. Lifestyle messages are critical, because particularly in the African and South Asian communities, levels of public health diseases continue to rise to dangerous levels. Levels of diabetes are at record levels. Hypertension or high blood pressure, record levels. Obesity or fatness are at record levels. Respiratory conditions continue to rise. Cancers continue to rise. And indeed, mental health issues continue to rise. It is incumbent upon me to spend but a few moments here in these podcasts, in each of the podcasts, to remind us that we must address these issues and be conscious of these issues so that we can help ourselves and help others around us. Because failure to do so will mean that the life expectancy, which should continue to rise, will falter because you're weighed down by illnesses. It would appear, as I look around the communities, particularly in the African and South Asian communities, that in every other, if not every family, a member of that family possesses one of those conditions. It is profound to observe, but I'm more concerned that it's not recognized by the families and by the communities as being a public health emergency. So I'm announcing these are public health emergencies, and we must therefore be mindful of how we live our lives, because we are, indeed, our lifestyle is a significant contributory factor. So I want you to listen to the words of the expert. Listen to the words of this professor as he makes some pretty straightforward recommendations as to how we should live our lives, what is good for us. Okay. Now, I'm not the expert. He most certainly is. I want you to hear his words. There is no financial gain on his part, I might add. Okay, there is no financial gain. Okay, he doesn't obtain grandizement as a result of giving this advice. No, it's a simple, common sense advice. It's only a few minutes. I just want you to hear his words, consider what he's saying, and consider if it's right to incorporate it as part of your lifestyle. Because if we can save just one person in each of these podcasts from one of these maladies because they've taken direct action, then it's worthwhile. People, audience, I can tell you, I receive hundreds of communications affirming that many of you have heard these words and have addressed the issue of our lifestyle. Listen to the words. Listen to the words.
Professor Kevin Fenton says, I'm a public health director. Here are 5 things you can do to improve your health. 1. Mindful and balanced eating. Nourish wisely. Eat whole, balanced meals with awareness to support energy and well-being. 2. Get outside. Being outside reduces stress, improves mood, and strengthens your connection to the world. 3. Stay curious, stay engaged, explore new interests, keep your mind sharp, build social contacts, and boost your happiness. 4. Get active, move it or lose it. Move daily, lift weight, and do cardio. Exercise, improve physical, mental, mood, and energy. 5. Prioritize rest and sleep. Disconnect, rest. Quality sleep supports mental clarity, emotional balance, and overall health.
Yes, 5 straightforward pieces of advice. And I must say, the last one I have difficulty achieving. That is getting sufficient rest. But anyway, I'm sorry, Professor. I'm trying, though. I am trying. But nevertheless, the words and advice are profound. They don't take additional money. They just take a bit of self-caring. Yeah? They don't require that you are overly determined. It just requires you to think about the impact your ill health might have on your loved ones, the people you care about. Yeah. What it requires often is for you just to hold the hands of someone you respect, someone you love, and together you can both, each of you, transform the world. Because your simple action to decide that you will live a long, healthy lifestyle can have and will have and has had a ripple effect. Because others have seen it, others have seen your example, others understood the reasons why for your action and therefore mimic you. We human beings are very good at mimicking each other. Let's mimic each other in a positive way. Let's mimic each other that promote good health and well-being and good mental health. Let's mimic each other to be good to each other. Let's mimic each other so that the world can be a better place. And what I'm heartened by is the numbers of you who've heard these messages, understood their importance, and have responded positively. Who've come together in common aim and common purpose, have understood if we work together, we're able to achieve anything together. Because in unity is strength. I know I say that often, but it is true. And I know you felt it, you've experienced it. In unity is strength. When a man and woman come together, in unity is strength. When people to come together with a common theme and work together towards aims objective, in unity is strength. If the United Nations could work with that theme in mind, in unity is strength. Does that not make sense? So, what I want to share with you is those of you who've heard these messages and have come together in common aim and common purpose, pool their resources so they can come together and exercise together. Yes, I want to refer you to a local organization to where I am now, who've come together in common aim and common purpose, exercising. They're big and they're small, they're wide and they're thin, they're young and they're mature. They've come together in common aim and common purpose. Just watch these people. They've made that conscious decision. Watch them, mimic them, and don't just sit there. Try and mimic what they're doing on screen. It's only 2 minutes, but it'll be a worthy 2 minutes. Here we go. Yes, there we go. Exercise to the little one there. We are working together in common aim and common purpose. See, that's it. Get up off your chair now. Just bend your knees for a moment or two. There you are. That's right. That's right. There you go. There you go. I can feel it. I'm doing it right now. Oh, that's good. That's good. Oh, I can see you. You're not just sitting there, are you? Come on now. Come on. Stretch your arms. Stretch your arms. See it on the screen. Stretch your arms. That's right. There you go. Absolutely. Put them up now. Put them up. There you are. Up. Bump your head. That's right. And they've got their water nearby. That's it. Remain hydrated. Oh, yes. Oh, I can feel it. Oh, that's it. Just a one knee now. Just push up and down with one knee. That's right. Oh, we get they're big and they're small. They're wide and they're thin. But they come together, common aim and common purpose. That's right. Ooh. There you go. Ooh. That's right. That's another dancing. It looks like a dancing here this time. Oh, yes, he's doing it. That's it. It's only 2 minutes. That's right. You can spare yourself 2 minutes. Be good to. Is she smiling? Is it? Oh, yes. And they've brought their children as well. The children are watching. Inculcated in their mindset. Exercise is good. There you go. Makes all the difference. That's right. Absolutely right. There you go. There you are. I know you're on your chair. Don't just watch. Come on. You've got to spend a minute or two. There we go. We're saving lives today. That's the theme for today. That's right. That's it. Just for another 30 seconds. There we go. That's it. Another 30 seconds. That's right. Wonderful. There you are. Okay, I'm going to pause that there. You can understand why it's a fantastic outcome to see people come together, common aim and common purpose, because their health is indeed your highest wealth. That's where the wealth is, in your health, in taking care of yourself to promote good health and well-being and good mental health is critical to our overall viability as a species, as a race of people, the human race. If in doubt, ask questions. We recommend, before doing these exercises, of course, go to your doctor, get yourself checked out, ensure that you understand what your current physical conditions are. Once you're clear about that and the doctor okays you, go along, join an exercise class. So if you don't have one nearby, create one. Come together in common aim and common purpose, because your health is your highest wealth. Okay. Look, if you happen to be in South London, okay, if you're in South London, okay, why not join this organisation, Countdown. They meet every Monday and Wednesday. Look, I'm going to put their details on the screen. You might even see me there as well. Hey, I might be present. There you go. They're called Countdown Health and Wellbeing. They meet every Monday and Wednesday between 6:30 and 8 p.m. The address is 12 Tatum Street, Tatum Street. That's London, SE17 1TN. Their email address is countdown0405@gmail.com. And if you wish to speak with Ishmael, who runs it, it's 07960803588. I commend this as an example, an exemplar of exercise groups that have established themselves across Britain in response to the call. Healthy lifestyle is a must. We must reduce the levels of obesity. We must reduce the levels of diabetes. We must reduce the levels of hypertension and cancers. Okay, and we must promote, obviously, good mental and spiritual health. I hope those words, I hope they resonate with you. And you can understand why just a few minutes in each of these podcasts are an invaluable means to communicate positive messages to positive people. Yes, you, I'm talking to you. You're the positive one because I'm responding to your vibes, to your energy. I hear you, I feel you, and we understand each other. Yeah, we could do it together. You're never alone. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Look, if you're here for the very first time, please don't leave without either leaving a message or indeed giving us a thumbs up. And if you haven't done it previously, subscribe. It's free. It simply tells the YouTube algorithm that the content of this podcast are worthy, that it should recommend the podcast to others. And there's nearly 1 billion or so subscribers to YouTube. It's free. It's good. It's a wonderful community. It has extensive membership across Europe, Africa, the Caribbean, Americas, and of course, the places across Asia. Fantastic. Thank you. Help us out. Help us out. And please subscribe. It really will help us out. Really will. I'm now pause because what I want to now do is to prepare the way for the theme for today's show. I am, of course, upbeat. But I'm also very concerned that still too many people have not heard the message about climate change. There's a part 5 to the interview with Lee Jasper, my last podcast, which I have yet to publish, where he focuses on climate change and building alliances with other communities to combat the scourge of climate change. I've not published it yet deliberately because I'm waiting for the right time. Because it is a discussion we need to have. However, for today's podcast, Hurricane Melissa hit the Caribbean, hit Jamaica, hit Haiti. You notice I've mentioned Haiti again. Haiti has not received the attention that it amply deserves. We Jamaicans are, we are worldwide and so on. But I want to mention Haiti as well. It was equally hit and devastated. It is important for us to understand the extent of damage caused to Jamaica, which runs into the tens of billions of dollars. Tens of billions. Okay. The UK government has committed 2.5 million and a further 5 million. I understand the 5 billion is for the Caribbean, which I presume will include Haiti. We hope will include Haiti. But 2.5 million was earmarked for Jamaica. As was noted in my last podcast, Jamaica emits 0.02% of the CO2 that's released into the atmosphere. 0.02 or 1%. 0.02 or 1%. But Jamaica is paying the price for the largesse of countries like Britain, France, Germany, United States, Italy, Belgium, Holland. Yeah. I paused. I want you to take that on board because these countries were at the forefront of the so-called Industrial Revolution. These countries have been emitting carbon dioxide and atmospheric warming gases for centuries. And as was noted in my interview with Lee Jasper, the last podcast, Britain has emitted not hundreds of tons of CO2, not thousands of tons or tens of thousands, not even millions, but over the 200-year period, billions of tons of CO2, and most certainly been a significant contributor to the climate warming environment that we're now experiencing today. United States most certainly is the case. The majority of the European Union countries are primarily responsible for the situation we're in now. Yes, it is true. Other countries are now emitting significant amount of CO2, such as China. It is true. Second largest economy in the world. It is most certainly true. But I note the Chinese have taken this matter seriously and are hand over fist spending far more than the European Union and the United States combined. Thumbs up to the Chinese. Thumbs up to them. Thumbs up to them. They're taking their responsibilities seriously because they've only been emitting this level of CO2 in the past 20 years, whereas Britain has been doing this for the past 200 years. America for the past, 150 years or so. Yeah. And America, it's just a scale is what's frightening. It's a scale that's frightening. And the current president, who is clearly a president who, well, I'm going to be polite, who I believe needs to go through an education process, needs to listen to his own scientists. It needs to observe the changing weather pattern and not simply state it's a hoax, as if it's not happening. Denial of facts. It needs to happen. America must become and rejoin the League of Nations against climate change. I cannot emphasize that more. But today's theme is that we're saving lives. In the first episode of Hurricane Melissa, what we outline is a scale and the intensity of this superstorm. And of course, the damage it was causing to the Caribbean and most certainly to Jamaica and indeed Haiti. And you can appreciate it is very difficult to build to defend yourself against a storm that, in this case, had winds of up to 185 miles an hour. Wow. Yeah. It was noted, of course, despite improvement in building standards in Jamaica, far too many buildings are built of wood and roof, which is effectively corrugated metal. Well, such constructions has little defense against most storms, let alone a superstorm. It's a fact. So that therefore creates an unusual situation. Therefore, we showed the destruction, at least some of it, because it was clearly emotionally traumatizing. Okay? So I took a decision not to show too many of those pictures or include those videos. Yeah, because I recognized the impact on mental health. I know there are many Jamaicans and others outside who see some of those places. It may have been your birthplace or places where your families are or your friends are, yeah, and have observed the devastation. No, didn't want to put you through it. It was important. It was important. It was important that the message is clear. These storms will continue and their intensity are likely to increase. Here in these northern climes, we've yet to experience such storms. All the indications are that places like Britain will become warmer. We've not yet experienced the superstorms that been experienced in the Caribbean. But if global warming continues along its current trajectory, it will happen here too. We are not insulated here in Britain, I want to emphasize. But today's show will focus on the heroes and the heroines. Today's show will hear from the politicians, the elected representatives in Jamaica, reciting their constituencies and the impact that the storm has had. We're going to listen to their rallying call. That's what we're going to listen to their rallying call to the people. This is what politicians do, to rally peoples around issues. It's understood what those issues are, because together we can resolve these issues. Working together, we have a better chance to resolve these issues. There was a press conference held earlier this week, led by the leadership of the Jamaican opposition party, the People's National Party. Their representatives were able to recite to us first-hand accounts of what was happening on the ground. And I'm assuring you, some of what they have to say is disturbing. I know, it cannot be avoided. But we want to hear from our elected representatives at times of great strife. We want to hear their first-hand account because they're out amongst the people. And each one of these representatives have been out amongst the people, experiencing firsthand their trials and their tribulations. And there's one representative, and she's going to be speaking about a part of her constituency, rural area, who is most poignant, and I'd hope to have her here today. But anyway. But we will have others here in future podcasts who will be featured on this press conference. It's important for you all to stay and watch and listen carefully to what our elected representatives who've been out on the ground and are providing first-hand accounts of what they have found and why it's important for you to respond by giving what you can afford by giving. It is critical that we are not immune. We don't isolate ourselves. We don't insulate ourselves from the feelings. Because what you feel in your heart is humanity. That's what we're feeling in our hearts. It's humanity. It is humanity. So watch and listen keenly. And if in doubt, ask questions, okay? If in doubt, ask questions. But I will say, before I go to that, I'll just make this quick announcement that I thought I should put on the screen first of all. That we are fortunate that there have been a number of senior officials from Jamaica who've been speaking directly to the people here in Britain. What I want to announce, and I've put on the screen now, here we go, I'll put on the screen now, that PMP UK will be hosting a meeting of which the Right Honourable, or the Honourable Mark Golding MP, the president of the PNP party in Jamaica, will speak to the people of Britain on the 26th of November to start at 7 p.m. Details how you can access that meeting will be issued at our next podcast. Okay. Or if you are in recipients of our communication, the Motivator Show communications, please, we'll ensure when you get the information early. But he will speak to the people of Britain and Europe on the 26th of November. Okay. It will be a Zoom meeting, so he'll be speaking directly to us from Jamaica. He most probably will have other members of the cabinet present, okay, speaking directly to us, and he will provide a first-hand account of what is happening on the ground without fear or favor. It'll be straightforward language. So you understand how critical the situation is in Jamaica. It is critical. I look forward to his keynote messages on the 26th of November. Further details will follow. Don't you worry. Further details will tomorrow. Thank you, sir. Thank you. But I want you now all to watch keenly this press conference. It was indeed a seminal press conference. It brought home to me the realities of what is happening on the ground. And I know you will find this a very helpful experience. Here we go. One moment, here we go. Let me get you in. Oh, we put it up on the screen. Of course, this is live, of course. Don't you worry. Here we go. One more time. There we go. I can put it up on the screen and we'll start this. There you go. Now, so this was a press conference hosted by the PMP in Jamaica, and it was intended to provide an insight as to what is happening in the various constituencies. There we go.
Good afternoon, Jamaica. Good afternoon to the world who is watching Jamaica today. The opposition has called this press conference because the West is in trouble. Jamaica experienced something we weren't truly prepared for. I know we couldn't have prepared for Melissa, but there are some things that we could have done differently. And there is still time to do some things that will ensure that those who experienced the wrath of Hurricane Melissa will help to pick up the pieces and get their lives together. Now, our leader of the opposition, Mark Golding, is going to play for you what has been happening pre, during, and post Melissa coming to Jamaica. Dr. Alfred Dawes will tell you about the health crisis and the potential health dangers if we do not get the medics into ground zero now. Isat Buchanan will tell you what they experienced on the eastern end of the island with Hurricane Melissa in Portland. We have MP Natalie Nita. She is going to tell you what happens when we do not coordinate well. When the local players at the councillor, local government level, the MPs, and outside help tries to come in, but the coordinating hub cannot hold, she is going to tell you how we propose that we do it differently so that Jamaica can get on with the business of recovery. I will speak with you as a member of Parliament for South St. James, a constituency that was directly in the crossbows of miserable Melissa. And then Zuleika Jess will tell you of the experience she had with her constituents in St. Elizabeth I will also speak to you about what's happening in Westmoreland, Hanover, Trelawney, because the information that we're receiving from our representatives is too much not to share with Jamaica. We will speak again when you can ask us questions at the end of the presentation. But for now, please welcome Mark Golding, the leader of the opposition.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Jamaica. Good afternoon, members of the media and all listeners. I want to begin by expressing my profound, heartfelt condolences to the families and friends of those who have lost their lives in this tragic hurricane or its aftermath. Our sympathies also extend very profoundly to those thousands, tens of thousands, perhaps hundreds of thousands of Jamaicans who are suffering at this time from the impact, the calamitous impact that this hurricane has had. And we are aware, of course, that there are levels of destruction. There's a large ground zero, as it's called, which is really the areas of Jamaica that were in the swathe of the hurricane when the eye hit in eastern Westmoreland, stretching into St. Elizabeth, stretching into the more westerly parts of Westmoreland as well, and then moving north into South St. James, parts of Hanover, and of course Trelawney and even St. Anne. The rest of Jamaica has also suffered damage, some of it before the hit of the hurricane. And so we can't leave them out, because there are communities all over the island where people are in a very difficult situation, whether it be due to no access with the roads being blocked or breakaways, landslides and so on. Our hearts go out to all who are in this dire predicament now. Now, I would say that this hurricane and its aftermath represent an existential threat to our society as we know it. People in life-threatening situations of isolation and deprivation mean that unless relief can reach them promptly and unless the necessary assistance can be found and distributed in an equitable and transparent manner to help them rebuild their lives, Jamaica is going to be facing very difficult times. And I think that point is not lost on anyone who is familiar with what is going on as I speak. In this context, we all need to pull together in unity to get Jamaica through this terrible disaster. This is a time to join hands and hearts, not just in words, but in deeds, so that the whole nation can feel part of responding positively to this devastating situation and the solutions that will help us to pull ourselves out of it. The opposition must not at this time be seeking to score political points as a political competitor of the government. This is not the time for the opposition to adopt that posture. And we are indeed trying our very best to operate in the spirit of that. On the other hand, we must point out where there are areas of need and what we see as the priorities in relation to those needs, where we see weaknesses in the response mechanisms that need strengthening or correcting, and we must provide, where we can, constructive, well-intentioned suggestions to help navigate the country through this disaster. We must also demand transparency and fairness in the distribution of all relief. The relief must get to those who need it, prioritizing those who need it most, whether they be of whatever political color or whatever demographic group they may belong to. They are all Jamaicans, and they are to be treated equally in this time without any form of discrimination or tribal politics coming into it. And we want to stand for that. There can be no place for partisanship or profiteering by political insiders or others connected to them at a time like this. It requires good governance, inclusive governance, authentic communication, and everyone working together. I now move to some of the things that I wish to propose in this regard. I have proposed to the Prime Minister from last week, Wednesday, that he should establish a broad-based task force to be given the responsibility of governance oversight over the relief effort, the relief coming in, how it is dealt with, how it is distributed, not to manage that process on a day-to-day basis, but to provide oversight to those who are managing it. So there's some accountability for how it's done, and that accountability is being held by a broad-based group that can enjoy the support and confidence of the whole society, especially those who are suffering terribly now and no doubt fear that they may not be treated fairly or they may be ignored or overlooked in the response of the state to the crisis. I also think there needs to be a clear command structure for the actual day-to-day management of the response to the relief. And that should be led, in my opinion, by professionals in disaster management, not by politicians who do not know the ins and outs of responding to a disaster of this magnitude. And we should not be shy of seeking international support and help from persons who have career expertise and experience in this regard. Thirdly, we're going to need a Marshall Plan, a well-funded, broad-based plan for the rebuilding and reconstruction of large swathes of Jamaica which have been ravaged by this hurricane. That plan cannot be developed today, but it is vital that we prepare such a plan and that it have the inputs of persons who have the necessary skills and experience and knowledge to design a comprehensive, workable plan that can be executed efficiently and that can have the confidence of our international partners we are going to rely on heavily to provide the financial support for this. And in terms of more specific recommendations now, I have asked the Prime Minister to make an additional allocation of resources to members of Parliament so that they can mobilize communities and contractors to help with the cleaning up of communities that are currently in a state of devastation, clearing roads where necessary, cutting trees and the like. Until that allocation is made, members of Parliament are unable to respond to the needs of the people unless they happen to have some personal resources or access to dealing with it outside of the public system, and many do not have that. I would also say that the process of engaging contractors to do that kind of work should be simplified and made easy for members of Parliament, especially in those areas where there's very limited connectivity and where following the normal bureaucratic processes that are required would be very challenging or impossible for members of Parliament. If contractors have a TRN, whatever the allocation is, they should be invoices, and those invoices can be submitted, but the work should be able to begin. Secondly, we note and agree with the decision to suspend the imposition of import duties and import GCT on disaster relief items coming into Jamaica. However, we believe that the period for which this has been announced is too short, because the time it takes to mobilize funding and make the necessary procurement abroad, the logistics, etc., of getting it shipped to points on land where they can then be shipped or flown to Jamaica takes some time. And to have it cut off by the end of this month is too short. And it's also not clear from the announcement that was made whether goods in transit to Jamaica will get the benefit, even if they haven't landed here at the time of the expiry of the window. I'm suggesting that we recast that window in a way which is more realistic, given the situation that we face. I also think we need an evacuation plan urgently for persons who are without shelter. That needs to be well thought through so that persons can be moved to places of safety where whatever form of accommodation can be erected to support them, whether it be tents or something else that can be put in place, and they can have access to the basic means of survival in an organized way. And that is necessary because right now we have people, many Jamaicans, who are exposed to the elements, including babies, including children, including the elderly, including persons with disabilities, and they need to be moved to accommodation which protects them from the ravages of the elements going forward. Those are my thoughts, and I'm now going to hand over to the next MP who is going to address more specific concerns in their particular constituency. I thank you.
Thank you, Party Leader. Greetings all. I'm Isa Buchanan, MP for Portland Eastern, also the spokesperson for youth and human rights. I speak on behalf of the people on the eastern side of Jamaica. I'm setting the context to say that equity in distribution is going to be an important theme if we are to ensure that all persons in Jamaica are not excluded or left out, but rather inclusion. Now in Portland, this is a direct message from the constituents. Port Antonio is not all of Portland. So in saying that, I want people to understand that there was devastation in Portland Eastern. In particular, the Fellowship Division, which is a valley area, Melissa did serious damage in that area. There are persons who, the roofs are all gone. It's similar in the Mansion Hill Division. So there are persons who are homeless as we speak. I raise this in the context that persons have an ability to try to survive. They try their best to ensure that they move on with their life. It's almost an innate ability these days. But I want the government to understand that when persons are building back their houses and just taking up zincs that probably don't even belong to them to ensure that they have a roof over their heads, they can't wait. It's impossible to wait until somebody comes to say, okay, I see the damage. We will process your claim and then give you some support. That support is in the sum of $50,000, $100,000, $400,000 if it's complete destruction. And if you are a Jamaican and you want to be a homeowner, you know the reality that $400,000 will never be able to put you back in the position that would make you a homeowner or in livable, humane conditions. So when I speak of equity of distribution, although Melissa didn't hit at ground zero in the east, we are an island surrounded by water, especially if you're a coastline parish like Portland, Eastern, St. Thomas, Portland, Eastern and Western, all of Portland and all of St. Thomas. But if we speak of the constituency, I'm not going to sit here or stand here and say that MPs who are not in those ground zeros aren't affected, because we all are. As it is right now, we are a country where resources are scarce. The opposition leader would have reached out to the Prime Minister and there was an allocation. What does that allocation look like? I can only tell you from the lived experience that from a human rights perspective, if you get $1.5 million, that amounts to no more than 600 care packages and probably 22 tarpaulins. Why am I speaking on this? Because it would mean that if you are a member of parliament and you had persons voting for you in the amount of 8,000 plus persons, these are persons that have been affected, and whether you know it or not, it's not just the elderly, it's not just women and children. They're able-bodied persons who live day to day. And I'm just using that as a starting point because I'm saying this, it is not the time to be political. You can't see color, you can't see political parties. You have to understand that on a human rights plane, the needs of everybody will be important. And we might not know it now, but what Friday will look like in terms of how you source your meal, it won't be a laughable situation. We must look at what is happening across Jamaica. And while we start to think of how resources are distributed, I will yield to my senior, Natalie, Comrade Natalie, to speak about distribution and all of that. But what I will say, though, is what is of great importance is that we are to go to the bare minimum and think of the human rights realities. There are persons who are ill, who their medication has to be on the refrigerator. They need energy and they don't have it. So 7 days have passed thereabout, and that medical access is not a reality because I've heard Portland is not a priority. I've heard that, and that is a sad reality because I have the evidence in terms of looking at the photos, the pictures, being on the ground in Manchester, being on the ground in Reach, being in Fellowship. I'm just naming a few: Bellevue, Comfort Castle, Millbank, where there are just total devastation, disaster. Persons who are from the disabilities community, the disabled community, and they don't have a home. The shelters aren't in operation. It's not a continuation of it. Persons have to go far places. So I need people to understand that. And when it comes to the distribution, yes, ODPEM is there. The Ministry of Labor and Social Security and care packages are going out. But I want you to quantify the reality. Is that if you have 300 care packages, that can just go to even one community. And it will, while I stand as a member of Parliament for Portland Eastern, and I can do so much and no more with the resources. And I understand when it comes to the concept of support Jamaica and funneling all resources through the government. That is an impossibility and not realistic. So much so that I have gone on by taking guidance from the diaspora to start a GoFundMe. And it is the diaspora from Portland and persons who are concerned that have raised funds for me to be able to do things that the government is not yet prepared to do. I will just say, think of every single person, because that is my duty as a humanitarian, as a human rights attorney, and even as a spokesperson for human rights and youth. And I will make a compassionate call to all members of Parliament that we are to work collectively through our offices. I will reach out to anybody that's close by, because I get the calls that my family is stuck in Westmoreland and I haven't heard of them. Same for St. Elizabeth, because we're all Jamaicans and we all have relatives across the island. And we are to think on those things. And when we think of equity of distribution, let nobody be excluded. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Salika Jess, Member of Parliament for Northeastern St. Elizabeth. There has been quite a lot of attention being paid to southern St. Elizabeth. Unfortunately, northeastern St. Elizabeth has been left devastated by the passage of Hurricane Melissa. It has been almost 1 week since the hurricane, and regrettably, not one government official has actually visited northeastern St. Elizabeth. Now, this is a constituency that has been ravaged. We're talking about entire communities that have lost their roofs, lost their homes. Communities such as Thornton, Windsor, in the Silo area, Bagdale Mountain. There are entire communities where absolutely no home was spared. When you look at the devastation, we're not just talking about it from the home perspective. We're talking about the road network, or roads, especially in the interior of the constituency, have been substantially and completely damaged. We have roads which have burst open, leaving craters almost 20 feet deep. I have communities which have been marooned. There's no way for them to enter or exit. I have residents reaching out to me to say that they can't get out of their community, and they have elderly persons who need to see a doctor and they can't leave. I went in search of a community yesterday known as Mariba, and I spent over 2 hours driving around and could not find the community of Mariba. I say all of this to say to you that the devastation has been extremely great in northeastern St. Elizabeth. And as a member of parliament, I have reached out to the government for assistance in getting persons who are marooned access so that they can actually leave their communities or enter elsewhere. I have been told by the government that as a member of parliament, I cannot engage with private contractors to have their roads cleared or to have their roads put in a place where they can leave or enter their community. And so I have been faced with a difficult decision where I have to choose whether I obey the rules as they currently stand, in which case it means that residents will be left stranded and trapped and unable to leave, even in cases of emergency. People will not be able to have access to food, water. Or I make the other difficult decision, which is to go against the government's dictates and actually engage contractors to put together the roadway as best as possible so that access can be had. I have chosen the latter. And so I hope and I pray that the government will actually make some allocation available to members of parliament in the affected constituencies. I am calling on the government to include the members of parliament, to engage with us, and very importantly, to empower us to help the people who are depending on us because they don't have the numbers for the government ministers, they have the numbers for their members of parliament, and they're reaching out and begging and crying out for help. I'm asking that the government consider making an allocation, particularly to the members of parliament in the deeply affected communities, constituencies, where it's not just a case of clearing the roadways, it's a case of actually engaging professionals who can fill the gaps and the craters and make a way where there is no way, even if it is just on a temporary basis. The hurricane has wreaked substantial damage, and it's important that there is equitable distribution of resources. I have received only 150 care packages from the government for distribution. That doesn't even last one lane in one community because everybody has been affected in most communities. So it's not just the elderly or the disabled, it is everybody who is affected. And so I'm calling on the government to engage and to engage as a matter of urgency so that the relief that is necessary can be had. Thank you.
So I will speak of the experience from St. James, and after which Dr. Dawes will speak about the health crisis and Natalie about coordination. When last I checked, we lost 5 lives in South St. James to Hurricane Melissa. And I speak not only as a person reading or hearing about what's happening in South St. James and in Jamaica, but as someone from South St. James who was on the ground from Wednesday. I left the constituency last night this morning at 2 a.m. to be a part of this press conference, because as the chief spokesperson for the people of South St. James, I think it is my duty to get out of the largest constituency in St. James of the parish. The other 4 constituencies share the other 48%. We're vast. We meet Westmoreland, Hanover, Trelawney, and 2 other constituencies, West Central and East Central St. James. To enter the constituency, traditionally we use 5 different routes. We have only been able to clear 1 route into South St. James, and that is through Long Hill to Anchovy Mafuta, Barnet Bush to take you up to Garland's, Moko, Maroon Town, or you go right at Fern, Plum, Cambridge to go as far as you can until you're stopped by downed power lines, poles, landslides, and rivers. Yes, the 7 Rivers has taken the road we have in the Bickerstead Copperwood plantation area. We still have communities that are marooned and do not have access to food. And when I say no access to food, what I mean is that when we advised them to go to a shelter like the shelter at Cambridge High School, we told them that we were advised by the government that food would come after the storm, which was a mistake, because some went in from as early as Monday of last week and they have not had food up till now. We were able to send a little boat across, a little blow-up boat across the roadway to get to some, and they got food for 1 night because the boat couldn't hold much more. We have seen the helicopters flying in the sky above us in South St. James, but most times they're going to St. Elizabeth or Westmoreland. They're going to the sexy places where disaster grief is big profit and big public relations opportunities. In South St. James, we're farmers, we're humble people, we don't like to beg. But I'm appealing on our behalf because we need urgently food for our people who are marooned in places like Catadupa, in Jungle, in Awful Gully. We're calling for help for people in Retrieve, where we join Eastern Westmoreland, because they were only able to get their dead out of the community just 2 days ago. We're asking to have the health authorities come in because the cows are still floating, the goats are still floating in the waters that have taken and submerged communities like Spring Bottom in the Roehampton area. 2-story high houses are still underwater. We have a coaster bus, you know the height of that, that is still submerged along the roadway to Cambridge. Based on my estimation, over 70% of the housing stock, the business, the livestock, the agriculture has been lost in South St. James. And when I go to the community, I don't know what to say to them because they ask me, MP, you see my house, it was right here, it's no longer here, what do I do? I tell them that I have not yet gotten a word from the government, right? To tell us how we're going to help them to rebuild and to get their lives back together, right? So, we're not asking because we are greedy. We're asking because the collaboration and the coordination on the ground is not reaching our people in South St. James. When I'm able to bring 2 bags of food like I did last night to the school at Malden High, they were not able to make breakfast this morning because it could only last 1 day. I'm asking you to help us to airlift some food into the communities, to get the sick people out of the homes and into the hospital. We have some pregnant mothers. We were able to get to the hospital at Cornwall Regional just yesterday. Her baby was not moving anymore in her belly, right? We have an urgent need in South St. James, and I know everybody is trying. All I'm asking is don't forget South St. James in all of this, because we are proud farmers and we want to get back with our lives, but we need the donations to come to us too. We don't want to stay left behind because we're deep rural. You're going to hear now from Dr. Dawes about the health conditions, because the mosquitoes are killing us already in South St. James, and then MP Natalie Nita.
Good afternoon. Dr. Alfred Dawes, Member of Parliament for South East St. Catherine and Shadow Minister of Health and Wellness. When Hurricane Melissa hit Jamaica, it was a catastrophic natural disaster. If we continue on this path where the government maintains hegemony over the distribution of aid and access to the most vulnerable communities by volunteers, if they try to do it alone, we will have an even more catastrophic man-made disaster. We are seeing a humanitarian crisis unfold before our very eyes. Ground Zero was in eastern Westmoreland, a parish that I'm very familiar with, and the devastation that is seen there and in St. Elizabeth and in other parts of Westmoreland, St. James, Hanover, and St. Elizabeth overall. It is mind-boggling. No pictures or videos can do justice for what you see when you're driving miles and miles. The smells of rotting carcasses, the flooded roads. Healthcare has been teetering on the border of collapse because of the situation at Cornwall Regional Hospital and the overcrowding in the feeder hospitals. What we are seeing now is an exacerbation of that situation, where Lucy Hospital, Noel Holmes Hospital, is pretty much non-functional. Up to over the weekend, there was no way of contacting hospitals for referrals. They would just get critical patients as fast as possible loaded into an ambulance and send them off with a hope and a prayer and what limited staff they can afford to send on that journey. The Black River Hospital has been devastated, and Salvamar Hospital, they have major infrastructural challenges, but even more so, the staff, they are also homeless. They are also living out of cars. Many of them are hungry, and many persons cannot provide health care because they do not have the resources. We appreciate that the government has now opened the NHS stores and has started to send out supplies. But we must not be fooled into thinking that a field hospital being set up means that it is an appropriate response to a catastrophe of this nature. A hospital is secondary care. There is no primary care in any of the affected parishes at the moment. This means that the clinics are closed. It means that diabetics, hypertensives, persons with heart disease, kidney disease, those who have a diabetic foot also, they are not being treated. And it means that they are going to have exacerbations and complications of their diseases. And already we are seeing where those who have access to the hospitals have been flooding the hospitals. We will see in the ensuing weeks an increase in mosquito-borne diseases. Within 6 weeks, we can expect outbreaks of dengue and whatever else is lying around, waiting for these appropriate conditions to manifest. The public health inspectors, they need to be empowered immediately so that they can start their food safety checks They can inspect for water sources that they are potable, they have not been contaminated. Basic materials such as food, temperature, thermometers must be provided. We must increase vector control activities immediately, and this is not just fogging, but source control. Otherwise, we're going to see a massive outbreak of dengue. The gastroenteritis from the consumption of spoiled foods, already we hear reports of persons eating rotted or rotting carcasses. And the unavailability of potable water will lead to diarrhea, dehydration, and in the most vulnerable, the elderly, the children, and the pregnant mothers, it may mean death. We do not know what the true death toll is from the hurricane, but what we can expect is that if these public health issues are not addressed immediately, we're going to see far more deaths occurring in the aftermath of the storm, in this man-made disaster, than what occurred during the passage of Melissa, the natural disaster we're here to speak about. We must head this off. We must resource the hospitals. We must send relief staff to the hospitals. We must find a way to get health care in the communities that have been cut off up to recently and are still cut off. And the way we may fill that gap is by inviting and coordinating the hordes of volunteers who want to go in and give some health care. Medical missions have played a very important part in the provision of health care in far-flung communities. And it is this provision of primary care, the screening, the early intervention with the medications, the dressing of wounds, that have kept many persons from seeking health care at overcrowded hospitals. If we have dilapidated structures, if we have damaged structures that are understaffed, it is reasonable to ask that volunteers be coordinated to go and man these health centers in the rural communities through the different medical missions. So these things must be coordinated immediately. Organizations that want to donate food and especially water, they must be accommodated. I've had complaints and I've tested the system myself, and I don't want to be overly critical. That is not the tone I want to project here today. But those who want to give are being frustrated by the process, and what is happening is that they are trying to make the journey themselves. The roads are blocked up. On our mission on Saturday, one of the buses broke down and the relief bus took about 4 or 5 hours to make what would normally be a 2-hour trip to relieve the staff that were left on that bus. The roads have been congested, and it is frustrating persons who want to donate, but we must set up a proper distribution network so that those who are impacted the most, irrespective of their antecedents, they get the resources that they need. It means not simply focusing on one particular area, but accepting that this hurricane tore through the entire Western Jamaica, and we must not ignore the plight of those who are in one parish. If the information that came to us through the media came late, and our attentions were already fixed on a particular area that was brought to the forefront of our consciousness. So in conclusion, my appeal is that we find a way to facilitate the donors of foodstuff, sundries, health supplies, and importantly, find a way to channel those who want to give service in the medical field so that we can organize relief missions to go to the communities that Nikisha spoke about, that Zulika spoke about, and others are bringing to the forefront of the nation's consciousness. We have to get medical missions into those communities, and we have to, they are coming with their resources, but there needs to be a greater collaboration between those entities and the government and the state agencies as well as the opposition, because we have made ourselves available to work alongside the government. So again, we do not want to convert a natural disaster into a man-made disaster because of partisanship, but we should focus more on partnership. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. After a disaster like Hurricane Melissa, the most powerful tool we have is unity. When we are united in purpose, government and opposition, national and local leaders, NGOs, community groups, and private citizens, recovery happens faster. Resources are used better, and help reaches everyone who needs it. Disasters do not discriminate by constituency, status, or color, and so our response must also rise above any division. This is a time for collective responsibility. We all have a role to play. Government agencies, first responders, the private sector, faith-based organizations, non-governmental organizations, and our community leaders all have a part in building back stronger. When we bring our strengths together, we save lives, reduce harm, and make every recovery effort stronger and fairer. But unity must be matched with preparedness. We have to learn from what went wrong. Our shelters must be ready and suitable to receive people before the storm, with basic supplies, pre-positioned, and shelter managers available, trained, and ready to serve. In some instances across Jamaica, the list of shelter managers included persons who were deceased, had migrated, or were simply unwilling to serve. These are gaps we must correct. We must draw on the best practices of experts so that our communities become more resilient to future hazards. That means ensuring all stakeholders have a seat at the table. It means and includes government at both levels, our councillors, our mayors, our justices of the peace, and all who serve as stakeholders at the local level must have a seat at the table, including our opposition, who has not been included in any of these meaningful disaster preparedness or operational meetings. It is important at this time that all the logistics, all the utility companies, the private sector, the insurers, the small businesses, the donors, and international agencies, that there must be a coordinated effort to make our recovery stronger. The media and communication platforms, academic institutions, and technical experts, most importantly, our vulnerable groups and survivors themselves must have a seat at the table. When we work together, the benefits are clear. Lives are saved and harm is reduced through coordinated action. Needs are prioritized and duplication avoided so that no community is left behind. Resources are used efficiently by pooling transport, storage, and funding. Expertise is shared, combining technical skills and local knowledge. Vulnerable groups are protected, including children, the elderly, and persons with disabilities. Public safety and essential services are restored faster, helping communities to recover. And most importantly, trust is built because people can see fairness and transparency. If we are to build true resilience, collaboration cannot happen only in crisis. It must be part of how we operate every day. That means maintaining open communication channels, sharing information, coordinating resources, and planning together before the next disaster strikes. The opposition stands ready to work with the government to strengthen our systems and ensure that every Jamaican, wherever they live, can depend on fair and transparent support in times of need. Let us commit to building partnerships and putting people first. When we work together, Jamaica is stronger, and we lead with compassion, coordination, and accountability. Recovery is not just possible, it is inevitable. Thank you.
So we'll now open the floor for questions. If you have questions, please state the name of your media house. If you're online, you can indicate by using the raised hand icon. If you're in the room, please indicate, we'll get the microphone to you and we'll take your question.
There you are. There you are. I trust you all would agree. What you received there was first-hand accounts from the local elected representatives who have direct contact with people on the ground, responsible to go throughout their constituency to see what is actually happening in their constituencies. And yes, that was hard to listen to. The very poignant presentation by MP for Jamaica South, the Nikisha Burchell. Can you imagine? Can you imagine 5 roads into your constituency and only one is open for 3, 4 days, 5 days after the event? Yeah. And then, in other words, your communities are cut off. You don't know what's happening to them. Can you imagine being in that situation? And knowing quite well that people coming to you because you're the local representative, okay, because they've not seen resources from Kingston being deployed in that location. Can you imagine being in that situation and then feeling and knowing that you cannot help them directly because you do not have the resources? Wow. Currently, at this stage, the death toll in Jamaica is 34, as I understand it. Okay, but that number inevitably will rise. That number inevitably will rise. We can only pray. We can only hope. We can only hope that numbers are kept as low as possible. But never, the numbers inevitably will rise. They definitely will rise. So I want to continue to emphasize, that if you are able to give, okay, either financial or items, I urge you, we urge you to do so. But please ensure whoever you're giving to is a legitimate organization. Okay? So the official government route, of course, is, of course, supportjamaica.gov.jm. Okay, that's very clear. Okay, and that will obviously get through. But of course, we've got those institutions, Jamaican institutions, such as Victoria Mutual, and of course, the Jamaican National. Okay, are also leading the campaigns. Okay, and of course, PNP UK are also providing a route to give and to ensure that those resources get to their intended recipients. Okay. It is so important in these times of great need that we give to legitimate organizations, that we're not jaded, we understand the urgency of this call. Okay. It's important, please, it is important that you hear these messages. At this point in time, the information about the death toll is still only creeping out. And I say that deliberately, it's only creeping out. But the death toll will rise. it will be important for those of you who can, and I'll put it on the screen again, to join the meeting with the Honourable Mark Golding, leader of the PNP, whose representative you've just heard from, who provided that first-hand account, that you be a part of that meeting on the 26th of November. It would start at 7 p.m. Further details how you can access the meeting will be available in our next podcast. Okay. It will be a Zoom meeting. The details how you can access the Zoom link will be provided to you. Okay. But it'll be a most critical meeting. Could it be unfiltered through bureaucrats and so on? What you'll be receiving is first-hand account by local representatives, the representatives of the people. I know, yes, like you, I'm apprehensive. Yes, I'm apprehensive what he will share, what members of his cabinet will share. Okay. With that in mind, midweek, there will be a special The Motivator Show, which will be a further update on the situation in Jamaica and hopefully Haiti. Okay. At least one or two of the MPs that you've seen on that press conference will be featured in that special edition, which will be on Wednesday. We go out on Wednesday. Okay. And if you're not yet receiving notifications of our meeting, remember, please subscribe to the Motivator Show channel, and in that way you'll receive notification of all the new publications we issue. There you are. Subscribe, okay. And equally importantly, if you're not in receipt of our regular emails, please join our email club. I'll put that on the screen for you now. There you go. There you are. The Motivator Show 501 at gmail.com. I repeat, The Motivator Show 501 at gmail.com. Okay. And we will ensure you receive the information in a timely fashion. Okay. But I say again, and most critically, it's important if you can give what you can afford. I want to emphasize, I know this is not a guilt trip in any way. Give what you can afford, okay? Or every little make a mockle, we say in Jamaica. In other words, every little bit counts, okay? Every little bit counts. Do not hesitate. We will appreciate you. We appreciate you. Whatever you can contribute, we appreciate you. But do not be put off by others who will try to suggest to you this is not worthy. We're all human beings. We're part of the same human family. I want you to hear this message. Share it with your family and your friends. Send link to this podcast to your family and friends. Ensure we spread the word, because together, working together, we will make the difference. And in doing so, we improve the human condition. We improve the human condition. And I know that this is a lot, and I know it is emotionally wrenching. I get that, and I completely understand how you feel, because I feel it, don't you worry, I feel it, okay? But we must face up to it. We all have a collective responsibility to rid the world of these maladies, okay? It is our collective responsibility, okay? You've heard of those elected representatives. You heard from that wonderful human being, okay, Nikisha Bushell. She spoke with such compassion for the people of her constituency, many who she still could not reach. She clearly was moved by that experience, and we hope we can speak to her live on the Motivator Show. Let's hear from her directly. But of course, the leader, the president of the PNP party, the Honourable Mark Golding, will be available to us later this month on the 26th of November. Okay. Yeah, I know it's been one of those sessions. I know. I get it. Look, it's important to hug each other. You must hug each other. Yeah, let's hug each other. Yeah, for the warmth of each other's compassion, and in doing so, we strengthen our bonds for each other as human beings. We transform the human condition. I hope these messages receive you well. If in doubt, ask questions. I say again, if in doubt, ask questions. Whew, yes, I need to. For you, I will continue with these podcasts, bring to you the issues that are important to us all, okay, in an unfiltered, untainted, non-partisan, objective manner. Okay, you encounter people here, or just ordinary people, who've decided to engage in extraordinary acts because they care, their compassion, their heart is beating. Yeah. Well done to you all. Well done to you all. If in doubt, ask questions. I want to thank you all for being here with us today. I want to thank you all for recognizing the importance of working together. I want to thank you all for your compassion. Thank you all for your compassion. Remember, don't leave unless you leave a message in the message section or give us a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed, subscribe. Just help us to spread the word. Okay. Because you are the chain breakers. It's your action that will effect change. I know. It's a great responsibility, huh? You are not alone. You're not alone. Until the next time, I remain the motivator.